Next question.
Okay, this one is for both of you. General Douglass first. Fauquier County statistically is in better shape economically than a lot of places, although all of us have seen first or second hand great difficulties. And we've come to at least hear this word sequestration a lot lately and its potential impact upon employment in our region. But bigger picture, what is Congress going to do to help us get out of this economic mess? Could you talk about your philosophy on taxation and spending, and be specific on who ought to pay what for what?
Well, we need a balanced approach, you know, and everybody that's looked at this in a reasonable way knows there are three parts to this. We have to increase revenue, we have to get the economy going, and we have to cut spending. And I think we can, if you want to talk about cutting spending, we can start right away by bringing our troops home from Afghanistan. We're spending $330 million a day, most of the money going to the warlords over there. If we had 1 week of that here in the 5th District, that'd be $2 billion. We could have this district humming. I mean, to tell you that the unemployment rate down there along the border is, you know, in double digits in most of those counties, and it needs investment. It needs both national and state investment. You know, and folks, you know, it's the House of Representatives that's in charge of raising the revenue for our country. It's in the Constitution. But my opponent took a pledge to a person in Washington that made the House's responsibility dysfunctional. He took a pledge to some guy named Grover Norquist. Who the hell ever heard of Grover Norquist? I don't think Grover Norquist's name is in the Constitution. So, you know, folks, if you can't make the model work, it's like a three-legged stool. It isn't going to stand up. So we have to make sure that we cut spending. And I can give you lots of ways that we can cut it. But we also have to raise revenue, particularly from those folks who are millionaires and billionaires and corporations that are shipping our jobs overseas. So it's a balanced approach.
Congressman Douglass? Congressman. General Douglass. General
You could call him General Hurd.
Congressman Hurd, I'm sorry.
Balanced approach. Listen, I'd like to begin by just saying this. You know, we hear people talk about a balanced approach, and it sounds really, really nice. And I know that there are a lot of people, even people on my side of the aisle, who think that we need to raise taxes in order to close the gaps that we have in Washington, D.C. But I would suggest to you that when most people that I represent, and this is based on my experience traveling around the district, most people who think that maybe we ought to have this, quote, balanced approach are also, when you ask them the same question, they say, well, you know, we ought to have a little bit of taxes and a little bit of cutting spending, and they'll guess where we need to be. That's not how it works. I would suggest to you that if you ask those same people whether or not they trust Washington, D.C. with more of your hard-earned tax dollars, those same people who might have thought of a balanced approach as a nice idea say absolutely not. And the polls, interestingly, show that. They show that. And you know why they show that? I would suggest to you that the reason that the polls show that, and people believe that, and the people that I talk to believe that, the reason that they believe it is because that's what they're always told. Every Congress, going back 10, 20, years, every time we've come up short and we need money, what do they say? They say we need a balance. We just need a little bit more of your tax dollars to get us where we need to be. Listen, we need to cut spending in Washington, D.C. That's the problem. It's not that we don't get enough taxes. It's that we spend too much money. We've been doing it for a long, long time. Now, my opponent can make fun of the statement that I made prior to the last election that I would not raise taxes. He can make fun of that if he wants to. But I would say to you this, that the people that I represent appreciate that because they're tired of having...
Congressman Hurd, thank you.
Let's do a little follow-up. Let's talk about the no tax pledge and why you signed it. And Also, Frank Wolf's criticism of Grover Norquist and the things he had to say almost exactly a year ago on October 4th on the floor of the House about that pledge.
Well, let me just say this about Frank. Frank and I, just like I think probably everyone in this room, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats, we all want to get to the same place. I think that I speak for everybody in this room that we want full employment in this country. How in the world could you be against that? We want a balanced budget in this country. How could you be against that? We don't want to hand off to our children $16 trillion in debt. You know, that amounts to $50,000 in debt for every man, woman, and child. That's not a joke. We're borrowing 40 cents on every dollar we spend. We borrow 40 cents on every dollar we spend in Washington, D.C. to support that spending, that reckless spending, and to support that debt. And guess who? You know, there's a lot of gray hair in this room. There's a lot of gray hair in this room. I've got some gray hair right here. It's not going to be us that's going to have to pay this $16 trillion in debt. It's going to have to be those little children. The children and the grandchildren are the ones that are going to have to pay this. So I would suggest to you that not wrecking the economy by raising taxes on everybody is the first important thing that we do. Now listen, I respect Frank Wolf, and he and I want to get to the same place. I don't know whether he signed the no tax pledge or not, but I do know this, and I was going to say when the time ran out, is that I make no apology for allowing my constituents to know ahead of an election that I do not intend to raise taxes. And that's because they've been told that before, and then people go to Washington and then they do the opposite, and they're just tired of it. They're tired of it, and so that's why I have no problem with it. I don't think it's a big deal.
Can I do a rebuttal when you get?
Oh, I will get. Yes, I just want to stay on this line for a minute, and I think there's plenty to talk about. What do you say to the people in the country who suggest that the masters of the universe control Congress, write the rules, and are taxed at disproportionate rates because effectively they write the rules, and in effect we've got a system that creates an upper class.
Well, I hope we'll get to talk about this some, because
let's talk about it a lot.
Well, but I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. There's no question that we need tax reform in this country.
How would you do that?
And let me just answer one question at a time. We need tax reform in this way. And for years and years and years, you're exactly right, Lou. The people that have been writing the laws in Washington, D.C., the people that have been writing the laws in D.C. have not been looking out for the taxpayer. Because our taxpayers don't have lobbyists. You know what? My opponent spent 9 years lobbying, and I can tell you this, that it is because of the spending that's taking place at the behest of special interests and those in the revolving door of influence, corporate influence, and political influence. That is what has given us $16 trillion in debt. I can tell you, I don't represent any party. I represent the people of Virginia's 5th District. And I always put them first. Never special interest.
General Douglas.
One second before we go on about this pledge, no tax pledge, and then we can move on from it, I guess. But there's a lot of discussion from Governor Romney talking about if he's elected, that he's going to close tax loopholes. My understanding is that if you close tax loopholes, Grover Norquist looks at that as a tax hike. Is that your understanding of the pledge?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I do know. But I do know this. I don't know what Grover Norquist thinks or what he doesn't think. I can tell you this.
But you've taken the pledge.
Well, I don't know what he thinks about closing loopholes and so forth and so on. But I can tell you this. From my view, what Grover Norquist's pledge required is that you do not raise rates without lowering a deduction somewhere else. And so it remains to be seen. I just don't know. But I know one thing is for sure. If we want real tax reform in this country, we have got to lower rates, and we need to bring more people. I mean, that's the whole point of having a jobs plan that gets killed every time it goes over to the United States Senate. The importance of having these jobs bills unleashing the power of our private sector and having more taxpayers in the system. That's the whole point. And I think that we should simplify the system, and that necessarily means doing away with deductions. But I do think that we need to save that conversation. We need to save that conversation for a time that we know exactly what we're going to reduce, and we need to think very thoughtfully about the consequences of that.
We all know that the biggest way to get out of this ditch is to grow the economy. And, my opponent voted for this thing called sequestration. Sequestration. That takes $1 trillion out of our spending program. Half of it on defense, half of it on our social safety net. His own party has said that would kill 200,000 jobs in Virginia, and he voted for it. 200,000 jobs lost, and he voted for it. He voted against the highway bill that brought thousands of jobs to Virginia. Okay? That's not a responsible way to run a government, folks. I'm telling you, it's not a responsible way to run a government. And I will tell you this. I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States when I was a second lieutenant. I took it again when I was promoted to general officer. I took it in the White House with Ronald Reagan at my side. And I took it one more time when I was nominated and confirmed to be Assistant Secretary of the Navy. I will never take an oath to some goofball named Grover Norquist who makes our budget dysfunctional. And I promise you, he can't even explain what it means. He took the oath, he doesn't even know what it means. Now, I served in an administration that grew our economy and created a budget surplus. We can do it, folks, but we can't do it with partisan politics and pledges to goofy people like Grover Norquist.
General, before we proceed, I just want to make sure that candidates probably don't go anywhere in this area without knowing that news is following you and that there are people in the audience perhaps who are, this is a news event. So I just bring that to your attention. I don't know if that was something you're aware of prior to the beginning, but I just want to bring it to your attention. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Walsh.
This is a question.
The implication. What does that mean?
It means that there are news reporters in the audience who were not necessarily here at the beginning of the debate, and so I want to make sure the candidates are aware of what they are, who they're talking to.
They're talking to us?
Absolutely. Not only you, are they, as it turns out.
General, we'll begin